in long-term recovery from mental health challenges, substance use challenges, life challenges. And I think that's all you need to know about me. You know, I'm somebody who's gone through it. I'm on the other side, and I think that we are the most powerful message of hope that exists. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you so much. I am so appreciative, Lynn, of your willingness to co-facilitate with me today. It's always great to have you as a part of it and tap into your knowledge and your wisdom and your energy. So thank you. I also want to let people know that this is being recorded. So for the folks that cannot join us, we will send out the link on the Pure Voice North Carolina Facebook page, but you're also welcome to share the link with whomever. We will do that every week. So just in case people can't join us, they have access. We also have some special guests with us today that are going to have to unmute themselves one by one. But it was really important for us to utilize the voices and the experience and the examples from peer specialists and supervisors in North Carolina. So from Sunrise, I know we have Justin on. Justin, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I got a face full of food. Sorry about that, but I'm with you.
That's okay. Thank you so much. So Justin is going to share some information with us later of some cool things that are happening with Sunrise. I know Sue was after the 100 cutoff, so she can't join us. So Justin, you're going to be our representative, if that's okay.
Sure.
Beautiful. And from Green Tree, is Lori on? I know she was attempting to get on. Okay, hopefully she'll be able to join us. From Promise Resource Network, do we have Amanda with us?
Here, here.
Wonderful. We'll hear from Amanda later. Do we have Zach?
Zach was unable to get in because it capped at 100.
Oh no. Okay, but Darcy, you're here. And do we have Mandy and Ariel?
I'm here. This is Mandy.
Here.
Great. Beautiful. Thank
We
you.
also have Rian from Sunrise. I hope I said your name right, Rian. But so we have somebody else here from Sunrise as well.
Great. It's probably Ryan.
Yes, that's another way to say it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got Ryan and Faith and maybe Rhiannon as well, and Brad.
Oh, beautiful.
All from Sunrise. Yep.
Yay. So you're fully represented. What about North Carolina Families United? Do we have partners from North Carolina Families United on? Okay, so they may be joining us, folks from Green Tree may be joining us, but we have a whole bunch of information to be able to share with you. Just a couple of logistics. Please mute yourself. I do have it so that if I mute you, you can unmute yourself. There will be opportunities throughout this for question and answer and sharing some of your wisdom and your information. So that will be the great place for you to unmute yourself, ask questions, engage in dialogue, and I'll cue you. You'll see when those opportunities exist. In the meantime, we have Lynn who is checking out the chat to make sure if there are any questions that come in from chat that we are able to answer those questions. And we have our guest speakers. And again, this is being recorded so that it will be available for future use. So that being said, let's get started. So we know, as people with lived experience ourselves, that during this isolation, we have a significant increased risk within our community of some really concerning safety issues, from suicide attempts and completion. The second week that our state declared an emergency, we lost an 18-year-old young woman in North Carolina to suicide. We know there's an increased risk of domestic violence and domestic violence related deaths. Week 1, there was a death related to domestic violence. And I know in my community in Charlotte, just the month of March, they saw around 520 calls related to domestic violence, which was a substantial increase of what had been happening previous. We know there's an increased risk of overdose, of self-harm, of child abuse and neglect. So we know this time is really, really sensitive for people for a lot of reasons that may be mental health related. It may be circumstantial. but now is truly the time for peer support specialists to mobilize and to be in support of people. We've been able to talk to people all over the country, from Temple University to an organization called NASHBID. And what I keep hearing over and over and over again is the peer community has stepped up, has been really nimble, really creative, and mobilized in a way that has put so many people on notice about what we do and the importance of peer support. So this is a time really for us to celebrate what peer support is, what we bring to the community, the critical support that we offer to people under critical circumstances, and how we can be really flexible to get support into the hands of people that need it. Whereas oftentimes systems, because they can be really cumbersome and regulatory focused, can really lapse in mobilizing. And so the peer community has risen to the attention nationally and internationally of so many people. And that is a reason for us to celebrate. It's a reason for us to applaud. It's what we've always done, but it becomes even more visible during times like this. So the question is, with all of these risks happening, how can peer support specialists help? And I wanted to make sure, and Lynn and I wanted to make sure, that when we got into this conversation, we have to understand help, because oftentimes what happens in our systems is we become trained to a definition of what help means. So we'll go into the field, we'll go to college, we'll be trained professionally, and every profession has their predetermined definition of what it means to be helpful. As a case manager, this is what help looks like. As a social worker, this is what help looks like. As a psychiatrist, this is what help looks like, so on and so forth. As a peer support specialist, though, we truly do not come into the relationship with a description of what we are going to do to help you, because what we have learned from a lot of the pioneers, and one of them is Pat Deegan, who has her PhD, and she wrote this amazing article called Help Isn't Help If It's Not Helpful. She wrote it after she came out of a psychiatric hospitalization. She had been hospitalized many times over long periods of time. And she wrote this really profound article that said, the more medications I was given, the more the notes from the doctor said, I am getting better, that these interventions are helping me. And the more help they were providing, the more my soul began deteriorating. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't have the energy and the spunk to be me. And so what they called helpful, I called completely soul debilitating. And she went on to say, the issue in this is not that those people weren't attempting to be helpful and that the hospital wasn't attempting to be helpful. It was, in her estimation, that their definitions of help were very, very different. And they came into the relationship with a predefined definition that she didn't find helpful at all. And so she wrote this great article, Help That Isn't Helpful Doesn't Help. And we use that in the peer community as a way to start the conversation by saying, if we don't understand your definition of help, how are we going to align the support that we're offering to know to what to do to meet your needs? So we start by understanding what helpful means to you, and then we design or tailor our supports to your particular needs. So Lynn and I started by listing just a couple of really basic examples of really what we call curiosity. It's one of those topics that she and I labor about over the years and have said, how do we teach curiosity? Same thing with creativity. How do we teach these things? And some of it we believe are just innate. Some of us are really curious by nature. Some of it can be learned. It all has to be conscious, though. We have to be very, very intentional about being curious with people and not just asking to hear, but actually asking to understand. It's one thing to ask a question just to receive an answer and write those answers down. It's another to ask a question to truly try to understand. what your experience is. And that's what we do in peer support. We listen in order to understand. And so I started asking Lynn these questions. Right now, what types of information are important to you? And we started comparing
Want
notes.
me to answer?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Lynn.
Or let me ask this first. What kinds of things would you imagine that me or someone else would answer right now? Feel free to just throw it in the chat box for a minute, and I'll let everybody know what we're hearing. So Shireen says to me, Lynn, what kind of information or support are you needing right now in these days of COVID? Any thoughts? Oh, I know, I'm asking you to be brave. Oh, thank you. Amanda says, and Darcy, connection, human connection, community. Absolutely, that's what we imagine people need. And we all, in our humanness, sort of think about what others need through the lens of our own experience. So let me tell you what I answered to Shireen. I said, I need to know when the dog park opens again. And Lisa got it because Lisa knows me, right? I need to have information about the dog park. Now, part of that is human connection, but it's a very specialized way that I get it as a human Lynn, not just as a human, as a human Lynn. And we thought we'd share that because it illustrates how our curiosity opens the door for information that we probably didn't even consider or think about, because we just do that as humans. It's not something that we fault ourselves for, but when we recognize that we're going to see another person in the lens of ourself, that's what helps us to remember to be curious and say, no, but what is the real answer for that person?
Yeah, and I'm seeing examples like when will the gym be open? Groceries.
Yeah.
How do I get groceries? I'm seeing a lot around belonging and connection. The dog park was a fun one, Lynn, for me, because I've been to exactly one dog park in my life. I know for you, you live and die by that dog park. That's part of your
I would
college
go and
life.
I photo the dogs. You know, there's a whole ritual for me that I've lost in this, and it's the most important for me to regain. It's
Yeah.
just a very individualized need. And that's really the message, is that we're also individual, and at any moment, what we may need or yearn for could very well be not what we, the listener, imagine the answer is going to be.
That's right. And so we just throw out a couple of these questions. We cannot go into a relationship and assume that what we're doing is helpful if we're not asking how the person defines help. And people define it in many, many different ways. We used examples of resource help, of support help. What types of opportunities are you looking for right now? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? What do you need more of? What do you need less of? What type of information are you looking for? So these are just categories of things to get curious with people, so that then we can align the support or the information that we're offering based on the things that are actually important to them. And so, you know, here's the illustration of it. What is the difference between support and advice? Well, it's actually power. Power is you should do this. I'm going to help you do that. You need to know how to do this. This skill is important. This is the information that is important to you. And it usually starts with you should, you would, you could, you don't, you won't.
Why didn't you?
Right. That's when we know, if we're using that language, that we are actually getting out of our lane around support because we are using advice. We don't do you should, you would, you could language as peer support specialists. We don't do advice as peer support specialists because we know that when we advise somebody, if you will, we are actually removing their power, or if they've never had their power, we're reinforcing to them that the answers exist outside of them, that they can't trust their own identity and thoughts and ideas. And so we want to make sure that we are offering support so that you can tell us, you can guide your life in your relationship. So what do peer workers do? And I'm going to ask Lynn, because Lynn and I actually spent some time doing this for SAMHSA, gosh, several years ago, being a part of writing a guidebook and doing some infographics and some memes. But we really wanted to use this snapshot as one example of what do peer specialists do? What are we?
And those are actually two questions. And I want to start with what are we? Because I think that when we have all the structures of the traditional mental health system around us, it can be hard to hold on to what are we. So I want to start with that and remind ourselves, because I think we can all use good reminders now and then. I want to go back to the word peer that is critical in this. And that is a word that has been a little bit co-opted to mean in this day and age that a peer is someone who has had a mental health or substance use diagnosis. When really, if we look in the dictionary and find out the definition of peer, it's really about that mutuality, that equality, that thing that neither one has power over the other. So I want to start with that we are in a mutual role where we are there to assist. And for those of you who have taken my classes, you know I always use the imagery of being the passenger in the car and not the driver. Right, so we're in that passenger seat, and we sometimes have to work really, really hard to stay there. So I'm actually very excited about some of the opportunities we have with a lot of the structures not working right now in this time of COVID. And so without those structures that take us away from our really our mission, I think we get to do it a lot better. And that's remembering that mutual connection of being with somebody saying, I've been there in the days of COVID. I'm there with you in some ways, and then how can I support you? So the other key word, of course, is support. So peer is mutual, support is support, not telling people what to do. It's really helping people find their own way. This definition that's on the slide includes a phrase by Larry Davidson, who's a very friendly and understanding researcher. He really gets it. And so he calls us being experientially credentialed. We're there whose experiences in our journeys, in our College of Hard Knocks, is what we bring to the table. And so it's really that experts by experience. And that's a term that was originally coined by the peer supporters in Scotland. That is their official designation, is expert by experience. And that's what we are. It's our experience that we can hone into, that we can share, that we can use in a way to inspire hope, to educate, to encourage, all of those things, but not to advise and tell. Okay,
Yeah,
Sheree.
and Lynn, I want to add to that because I get this question a lot, and we're going to use this as a topic in the future. What is the difference between a case manager and a peer support specialist?
Right.
And I know you get that question a lot because people think that if we're doing a particular task, we are operating as a peer support specialist.
Right.
And the truth is, if we are not tapping into our expertise and our mutual relationship, anybody can do a task. It is not about the task in the peer role. It's about the task in the case manager role. And that is one of the things that differentiates between a peer support specialist and a case manager. Our worldview, the way we operate, the language, the role of these tasks, the role of the exchange becomes very, very different in a peer role than it does in case manager. So from a foundational perspective, if you are not tapping into your expertise, not based on your education, your licensure, your academic experience, but by the experience that you have of being a mental health patient, of being a person with substance use challenges, being in hospitals, living on streets perhaps being incarcerated, if you're not able to tap into that expertise that you carry, then whatever you're doing can just be replicated by anybody. That is not peer support. And so we are going to get into that into future presentations, future Fridays, of what is the difference between peer support specialists and case managers. And so
one of the ways I really briefly summarize that for folks is I say a case manager is responsible to accomplish the tasks. For a peer supporter, the task is the excuse or the mechanism to bring people together for that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. So if we were to take all the things that peer support specialists do, and we were to categorize them in the types of supports, what we find is there are typically 4 emerging themes or types of support that we find. Lynn, do you want to walk us through these 2 slides?
Yeah, and these actually came out of the substance use world, and they were articulated really well by Bill White, who is really the lead of how to make peer support work on the side of substance use, and his work is great. And so he's really articulated that we have 4 areas. One, the one that we think about the most, which is that emotional support, that place of being empathetic, and that camaraderie of shared experience in a helpful way to help people not feel alone, to help people know that there are others that have been there and that maybe it can get better, all that sort of emotional connection. But we also can be there to really support people around information. Information of what helped us, not telling them what information they need, but sharing the information from the vantage point of what has worked for us and what resources we know are out there in the event the person would find those helpful. So information, helping people get connected, walking with them, walking through the door of a new resource, because that's often the hardest thing, is just getting there. So accompanying while we connect to resources. Also what's called instrumental support, and that's really helping people navigate through systems that are just unmanageable, like housing or social security, helping them get those basic needs, because when people don't have the basic needs, they can't think about any other need either. And then what's called affiliation support. And that's really the connections to more than one person, but larger communities. Maybe helping people, if they want, connections to peer-run organizations or to a church community, whatever kind of communities that might bring meaning to the person, and really helping with thinking through, how do I connect in those communities? How do I walk in the door? How do I say hello? All of those things that sometimes seem, well, those are easy enough, but when we haven't done it for a long time can feel really challenging. So helping folks on any of that stuff. And these 4 areas really kind of meet all of the, holistic needs that someone may bring to the table. And that's how we've chosen to sort of break down some of the innovative ways that peer workers and peer specialists and people in the community are really trying right now to reach out and connect in this time of COVID.
Yeah, and the version on the right, I would say this is more of how do we do it as peer workers. So the first one, inspire hope that people can and do recover, is kind of similar to the third, in that if you've never seen recovery around you, if you are accustomed to being in spaces where everybody else around you is unwell, or they're experiencing emotional distress, where your identity is a patient or a client, and you've never had the opportunity to see recovery in action, to see examples of hope and how people have overcome really significant things in their lives, then it can be really difficult to imagine that you too could recover, that you could have the life that you want, that you could be a worker, that you could be a homeowner, that you can be a parent, whatever the identities are that are important to you, or the roles in life that are important to you. We need to have hope if we're going to strive to accomplish those things. So that's one of the many things that peer support specialists offer in the relationship that oftentimes just cannot be replicated with other roles or professional experience. If I've seen you and you've done it, it gives me hope.
Right. There's a great saying, you can't be what you don't see.
Right.
It's
Great.
the seed that inspires us inside to strive for it. I know for me, there were two critical points in my life when seeing that something was possible changed the direction I went in a dramatic way. And my guess is that of the 100 folks on here, probably 99 have had that in your life as well.
That's right. Walking with people on their journey, not in front of, not behind, but walking with is a critical way that peer support specialists show up in relationship with people. That means that whether it's good, bad, ugly, dark, light, we are there unconditionally to provide that type of support and walk with you wherever your journey is, without judgment, without trying to redefine your dream or redefine your image of your life. We are there with you, dispelling the myths about what it means to have mental health issues and substance use issues, as well as providing self-help. We have learned that one of the key ingredients in recovery is my belief that I can recover, and having one person that believes it to their core. We also know that self-help is a significant part of the recovery process for many of us, learning how to what would clinically be called self-regulate, work with difficult emotions without judging them or diving into them and living our lives based on them. But self-help becomes a critical way that peer support specialists are in a relationship with people. And then, of course, helping people to dream again. Lynn does this great training called Dream-Centered Planning. And, we both say it's not person-centered, it's person-directed, but it's dream-centered. If you haven't dreamt in years, if you can't imagine a life outside of treatment and pills and labels and service providers, what are you actually aspiring to? We support people to be able to dream again.
And we support people to make their own mistakes without judgment. Another saying I like is you can't do what you've never done. And in our systems, we so protect, quote unquote, people from opportunities to try, make a mistake, and learn from it, which is the core of how we all need to learn and grow to become what we want to be. So by being in that passenger seat, we let people drive where they want to drive and have conversations with them on the road.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say, I'm just gonna challenge one word that you
Sure.
put in there, Lynn, and that's the let people. We don't have that level of power.
I love
What
it.
we do, though, is make sure that the person has access to the information and the tools and the knowledge and everything they need, so that if they do want to drive the car, we're there to support them, right? And so,
Yeah, I would reword that we don't try to step in and stop them from driving where they want to go. That's it.
Exactly.
I love it.
Lynn and I decided, how cool would it be to use these 4 examples of how we provide support to illustrate how you're doing it in North Carolina, and give current peer support specialists and supervisors opportunities to share the amazing things that you're doing, and also give everybody on the call an opportunity to share some examples from your own life, your own work. So when we went back and started categorizing this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, we hope to. We know that the world changed overnight.
Yes.
And some organizations have more resources than others. Some have had more ability to sort of get your heads together as peer workers to think of options. Others of you work sort of in isolation. So we wanted to bring you examples so that you can think, oh, wow, I can do that where I am too. So these are also examples that we hope will inspire you, because we know a lot of you are just working on your own out there and haven't had the resources that others of us had. So we hope that these will also help you and give you ideas as you're out there limbering, like, what do I do now? Because it's been a hard change. Really.
It really has.
Yeah.
And we want to hear your ideas. How have you shifted? What are some of the cool creative things that you've done that you have found that people really want to be a part of and show up for? So under emotional, we know the description. Lynn already talked about it. And we have several tools that we do to connect with people emotionally, including self-help and all those great peer support skills about listening and communication and sitting with somebody not in judgment. That's where all of that emotional support piece comes in. Under informational, it's sharing the information and the knowledge that people want to know right now. And we oftentimes use the 8 dimensions of wellness because it can be really big to be asked, well, what do you want to know right now? I don't know. Are you talking about health? Are you talking about my relationships with people? Are you talking about my financial situation? Are you talking about whether I'm ever going to be able to work again? What are you talking about? So sometimes
We're
we
actually
use-
going to do a whole week just on that for you guys.
Yeah. And so sometimes we use the context of 8 dimensions of wellness to ask those questions and just give a framework around the type of support that could be available to people. When we get to the next couple, we're talking about more skills and instrumental relationships. So supporting people in problem solving and self-advocacy, accompanying people are examples of instrumental support. And then our last one is really the affiliational, and that is the connection with our recovery communities, with other people that experience it. It's what we're doing today. We're doing part information and part affiliational support. So we'll just keep those in mind as people come through and they start giving us examples. So let's start with emotional support. Emotional support is about connection, it's about relationship, it's about camaraderie, and it's about empathy. And here is, we just love this illustration because it is a beautiful example of what we mean by peer support. I'm afraid, said Rabbit. What are you afraid of, asked Bear. I don't know, replied Rabbit. I just am. Then I will sit with you until you're not afraid anymore, said Bear. We will face it together. That in a snapshot is quintessential peer support right there. So we just wanted to share that with you. We did get a question in the chat. Are we going to get a copy of the slides? You absolutely will get a copy of all of these slides. So here are 2 examples coming out of North Carolina of emotional support. Both are what is called warm lines, which are phone hotlines. Sometimes they're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes they have specific hours, weekday hours, after hours, or weekend hours. Both of these happen to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call and talk to a peer support specialist. A warm line is different from a hotline in that it's a non-emergency, non-crisis phone line. So it really is about, I'm feeling isolated, I'm feeling lonely, I have this issue that I'm trying to figure out, I'm looking for this resource or this piece of information. You can call a warm line. On the left is Promise Resource Network's warm line. We had a warm line back in 2005 for a few years. We reopened our warm line specifically for COVID. And thanks to our beautiful data gathering from Lisa Kristanak, I figured out today that over the past 2.5 to 3 weeks, we've had nearly 190 calls on our warm line from all over North Carolina, all over the country and Canada, asking for support. I also know from Sunrise, from the last quarter alone, they received 471 calls. So they're also averaging 150 or so, 125 a week before COVID. I can imagine what it's like right now for Sunrise, but combined, people are calling our warm line to connect, to get support, to talk to a peer support specialist. It's one option that if you want to take this approach and just adapt it, it could be a warm line specifically for people that you're supporting in ACT teams. It can be a warm line for your community, for your region. It can be a warm line devoted from your agency to the people that you support in your agency. It doesn't have to be a national or statewide warm line, but there are other versions of a warm line that you could set up as a peer support specialist. It also could be a chat line as opposed to a live person. There are ways to do this, but it's just one idea that we wanted to share with you that we are finding that people really are enjoying and utilizing a lot in both of the warm lines that we have here in North Carolina.
Can I jump in, Shireen?
Yeah, please do, Justin.
I was just going to say that with the warm lines as well, this is one of the examples of something beautiful that happens when companies just care about people and not silos. We get calls consistently from people in Western North Carolina where we're located, but also we have calls from your side of the state. And so we'll field those calls and do everything that we can to support them in that phone call, but also direct them towards the resources that are over towards you, because we know that you're the expert on where you are specifically. And it just works beautifully because we have that connection between PRN and Sunrise that we can do that. And if any other peers are thinking of starting a warm line or a chat line or something like that, just know you don't have to have all the answers for the state or for Canada or any of those things. We're looking to connect with the peers that are there.
I'm so glad you said that, because we are constantly between Sunrise, Promise Resource Network, Green Tree, we are all in contact with each other. So when somebody does contact folks in the western part of the state that live near we do in MEC, it just makes sense to also connect them to local peer support specialists. And we do the same thing with folks at Sunrise. We do the same thing with Green Tree, with Toya in the eastern part of the state, or with agencies. We have referred more people to ACT services and other services right now over the last month. So you're absolutely right. You don't have to have all the information for the entire country, the entire state, or even your entire region. But if we are working together, we can fully support people.
Yeah,
Thank you for that, Justin.
I just wanted to jump in just in case somebody doesn't understand the difference between a warm line and a hot line, if this is a new term for you. A hotline is something where people call like really in total crisis and need, some sort of immediate response. A warm line is where somebody is uncomfortable needing connection. It's a pre-crisis line, and I just want to let people know that because it makes a difference on how you think about staffing it, and the way we communicate it out. And it's a place where people can listen. And Jennifer, I saw in the chat that you were asking about how do you do a warm line. There are some things out there, and we can try to get, I know there's a manual on it, and we'll also, I think, consider that for maybe one of our Fridays is maybe that by itself, or that and a few other things. How do you actually get them up and running? Thanks for the question. Yeah.
And Rebecca is also sharing in the chat that they run a chat line as well, and that it's really popular. People are utilizing these things right now because they can't see us in person. They're utilizing the other tech and non-tech supports. So this is another example of a non-tech support. This came out of Amanda Martin, who is a peer support specialist with Wellness and Recovery Courts. Amanda, can you just give maybe one sentence or two sentences about these cards?
Sure. So I'm a person who has been incarcerated. So sorry, Shireen, this is going to be more than one or two sentences.
Okay. Keep it under 5, my friend.
I gotcha. So I knew for me that during my incarceration, that involved a lot of isolation and a lot of things very similar to what is happening now. And Mel is really kind of what got me through that 5 years of my life. So myself, with the help of one of my best friends and coworkers, Mandy, came up with this idea for our courts. And when the pandemic happened, we decided we could take this to send out to the community. So we just put together, I just developed a card on Microsoft Word. It was very easy. And the text inside says, "You are loved, strong, and worthy of peace and meaningful wellness. Your Promise Resource Network family is here for you and ready to support you during this time." And I just went through our case management system and sent this out to people that I knew addresses were accurate for.
Yeah, and you put the warm line on there, and people have responded. We've had more calls within PRN of people calling us to check in on us as well, or thanking us for the card. It's another example of just a no tech, just thinking about you. We love you. We are here. Call us. Here's our warm line, whatever the case may be, of just reaching out in a non-tech way to people that we can to keep that relationship going. Thank you so much. And this comes from Sunrise. This is also Justin and his team as well. You're doing a whole bunch of classes and online support, right, Justin? Or whomever from Sunrise. Do you guys want to give us a bit of an overview on this?
Sure. Yeah, with the pandemic, we knew that we couldn't just end services. We knew that we couldn't just disconnect and hold our breaths and hope no one got hurt. That was not going to be an option. So, as is most of the things with Sunrise, we tried to adapt to what the community needs were. So, what helpful means to you, that phrase that you said earlier, I think that dictates every service that we have. I think every group, every training, everything is through that particular lens. So our online groups themselves, I'll just go through the list real briefly for y'all. We've got our recovery community listening sessions. That's where we invite the community to talk about different topics that the community brings up regarding the pandemic or anything else on their minds. And we're doing those weekly now to keep a pulse on what community needs are and how they're feeling. We've got LGBTQ plus adult recovery groups that are, again, all Zoom meetings that are online recovery supports. Peer support, that's support for peer supports who need a safe place outside of their providers or outside of their companies to come and to connect with other peer supports on anything that they want in a safe way. Because we have very unique experiences as peer supports during this time than maybe some other workers might have. And we need to be able to share those as well. We've got our eating disorder support group. We've got Smart Recovery, again, all Zoom meetings. Recovery and Wellness is our standard peer support group. What else we got here? We've got our medication assisted recovery anonymous group that we do through Zoom. Smart Family and Friends group for those who have family members or friends who are struggling with some kind of either mental health struggles or substance use struggles. The Family and Friends group from Smart is amazing for that. And then we have fun stuff as well. Every Friday, it was just going to be a one Friday thing, but the response was such that we opened it up. We do a no hands dinner. So you just stuff your face in some plates in front of people and say, "Pride be damned," and you connect with your community in a ridiculous way. And you sit around your dinner table like you would with your family, hopefully, except you're with an extended family. And so we're doing that every week. And then we've kind of opened up those groups to our trainings as well. So, we have one-on-one peer support as well. There's one-on-one signups, and those are done over the phone in a continuing way, which some people think is like case management and is not anything like case management whatsoever. The brief description that Lynn gave of case management versus peer support, this is peer support, authentic peer support in our one-on-one ongoing peer sessions. But we've converted our messaging trainings as well to online messaging trainings. Recovery Coach Academy, we're still in process of that. We're going to release that, I think, probably in 3 weeks or so, but we're a good ways in to converting that to an online training as well. We've got an ongoing Lunch and Learn series just like this one for our community as well. That is, again, community driven. And even our other programs that were existing, like Felony Drug Diversion Program, we just made the decision to open that up to doing Zoom intakes. And that was a really difficult decision because we never want to set anyone up for failure. So we had to build in a lot of space for people with the district attorney to be able to continue that program in that way. But all these things are in responses to people's needs. And
Absolutely.
so that's a brief breakdown of that. And I think Faith also has some information about some of the things we're doing if we have another minute here.
So Faith, can I have you do that under some of the other groups? Because I do have visuals of several of the groups that you guys are doing. So can I ask you to?
Yeah, that's no problem. I can jump in whenever, and even if not, this will be ongoing and there'll be plenty of opportunities, hopefully, for everybody to share the good work that they're doing. So definitely.
But jump in, Faith, wherever it makes sense, definitely jump in. So we wanted to give you an example from a peer-run organization from Sunrise of all the different ways that they have now made classes and support groups and a one-on-one support accessible. And those classes are open to everybody. Is that right, Faith?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So it does not need to be here in the Western region. Anybody can hop on.
Beautiful. So the question is, where do we go to get that calendar? If you go on Sunrise's Facebook page, you will see as they go along, they are posting examples and invitations for each of their classes. If you go to their website, it's the same thing. This next slide is from Promise Resource Network. I can just basically say ditto of what Sunrise is doing. We are teaching 3 classes a day, a support group a day. last check yesterday, we had about 18,000 views of our classes because we're doing a lot of classes Facebook Live right now. We probably have 7 or 8 different class varieties, a support group every day. We're doing things on weekends. We're doing things at nighttime. These are 2 examples from us. So this would be kind of similar, synonymous with what they're doing at Sunrise. We have our own versions of things that we're doing. I can tell you between our 2 organizations and Green Tree, there is a class, a support group, something going on every day of the week that is open to everybody in the community. So we are really hoping that for the peer support specialists that are on the line, that perhaps you think about, if you're not doing it already, teaching a class, doing an online support group, perhaps even joining one of the Sunrise or the Promise Resource Network classes with somebody that you're supporting as well. So you're sharing in something together, you're learning together, you have something to work through afterwards, talk more intensely or in depth about whatever the information is that's being shared.
One of the great things right now is we've ended up with this opportunity to really come together instead of being so isolated in our own spots. And so, you've got the opportunity to see what are other folks doing and learning how to bring that into your own stuff and be able to do it in a way that we just haven't had this opportunity before.
Absolutely.
So definitely connect with other folks, find out how they're doing it. And if there's big stuff that you want to know how to do, let us know and we'll see if it becomes something that we can do on a Friday for everyone.
Absolutely. And I know all 3 organizations would be happy to talk with you about how did we start it and what does it look like? What do we do in the classes? You can join any of them and experience it yourselves and get ideas to bring back to your community or within your organization. Up until this point, the last about 2.5 weeks, PRN has taught 38 classes, and we have had, like I said, about 18,000 views of the videos, and that doesn't include our support groups and all of the people that are joining our daily support groups.
And also,
so really
Mental Health Greensboro is also offering Zoom support groups and classes, as well as support groups on Facebook. We will get the information out to you. I've got the link here in the chat, so you can either write it down or we'll post this information later as well. Thank you for letting us know, Lee. Great.
Thank you, Lee, for that. So there are so many.
I was going to say, I think it's important to note too, the classes that you're offering and the groups that PRN has and Sunrise has, these stem from a place of needs, again, from the community. This is not some big organization like Sunrise saying, well, we definitely need a MARA group and we definitely need a smart recovery group and we definitely need a recovery and wellness group. It wasn't like that. These things, at least for Sunrise, has definitely grown organically from somebody's passion because they know of a need that's specific to them and the people that are around them. And they said, hey, this could really be useful for us if we started this kind of group. And we said, fantastic, here you go. What do you need to do that? And we just provide the support so that we can raise them up to do whatever comes naturally and organically out of the community needs themselves. So I just wanted to reiterate that. It's not a program or a structure or a thing. It's people, and it's people driven.
That's great.
That's right. People saying it. We had a whole bunch of people say, we want to do a town hall. We used to have a face-to-face town hall and we want our town hall back. Let's do it virtually. And so that kicked off again this week where we're doing our town hall. And it really is a community deciding what support looks like and what type of help that they're looking for. All of this goes under the category of tele-peer support.
Right.
Sometimes you'll see it called digital peer support. And there are trainings out there. I actually have a link for you around digital peer support and digital peer support certification. It looks like a lot of different ways. One is what we're talking about, doing these online support groups and online classes. But if you look at this list of tele-peer support or digital peer support, there are a lot of different ways peer support specialists are utilizing their knowledge and their skills through telehealth. One is called asynchronistic tele-peer support or peer support, and that's really kind of a one-way. We're not interacting. It's an example of that would be text. Another example is synchronistic. So that's what we've been talking about with our web conference, where there's a give and a take. Even if it's by chat, if it's by visual, that's an example of synchronistic tele-peer support. There are computerized peer support programs like Common Ground. There are smartphone apps like Peer Tech. There are a whole bunch of tech platforms out there that do meet the guidelines of HIPAA and some of the federal requirements for telesupport, like Hey Peers, Talk Life, and We Are More. We have social media platforms all over the place with Facebook and YouTube. And we're even seeing peer-based video games and peer avatars showing up and doing tele or digital peer support. So it's really quite interesting and cool to see what's happening in the digital age with COVID and how peer support is being imagined and reimagined, if you will. The link to the bottom left is the digital peer support certification. So if you're interested in going through training specifically around digital peer support and telepeer support, go to that link. There is a national certification around digital peer support. I know all of our team members, all of our peer support specialists have been through the training, have been certified themselves, but it's one example of something that's available to you if you're interested in learning more about telepeer support.
It's also a great time to start thinking about what technology needs do the folks that we support have, and how can we rally the community in this time of transforming everything into a digital world. What resources do we have in our own communities that might donate phones or find ways to give people enough hours on their phones, because so many, or minutes, so many people have limited minutes. So if this is truly going to work and outreach to folks, part of our job is also to think about how do we rally the resources and get them into the hands of the folks that need them and help them become proficient on those resources so they can actually access everything that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So these two slides are just two examples. What type of technology platform could I use? What if people don't have smartphones or smartphone technology? What we're finding is different communities are stepping up to get tablets, to get Wi-Fi. I'll show you a couple of resources on that in a couple of minutes. But this is where peer support specialists and knowing the resources that are available around technology and access become absolutely critical, because so many things are tech-based now. We have an entire community that is at a huge disadvantage. How do we get those things in their hands? And then how do we teach them how to use it so that these things are accessible to them? When you go through the telepeer support training, and Lynn and I can certainly do a version of it as well, if you all would like us to cover telepeer support, we can share some of the resources and some of our lessons learned. Then please let us know, and we will devote a little bit of time or even an entire session to telepeer support. But it's exactly what Lynn said. So Brian, so we have 5 minutes, actually a little bit less than 5 minutes. It's 1 o'clock right now. We are going to 1:30, and we have 3 more areas that we need to cover around the supports from peer support specialists. So I'm gonna open this up though, because Brian said, can you talk a little bit about peer support to parents and youth? Please do it.
I'll be real quick. Shireen's been a great presentation. Just wanted to let you know that North Carolina not only honors the lived experience of individuals, but it also honors the lived experience of parents who have supported children and youth with either mental health challenges or developmental disabilities, and in a paid position. And so just as you get a 40-hour North Carolina certified peer support state certification, you can also get a national one, but you can also be certified by the state of North Carolina to be a family partner, which is a parent who does peer support for other families. So as far as if you're a parent I'm talking to and you walked with a child through a psychiatric journey and they have healed, not only can individuals recover, but also families can recover and heal. Communities can recover and heal.
Right.
And so it's more of a wraparound approach. And I'll also let you know that the state of North Carolina also honors youth. Youth can support other youth. We have youth partners around our state in a wraparound way. So Monarch, Youth Villages, RHA, Thompson, Parent Voice, Easter Seals. North Carolina's Families United is the umbrella organization that does the training around our state, but SAMHSA also has funded projects for family partners. And so just wanted to mention that peer support is a large, ever-growing,
Yes.
enterprise to older adults, to Native Americans, to those that are re-entering. So
Absolutely. We are seeing these specialty disciplines all over the country and internationally: forensic peer support, veterans peer support, parent-to-parent partners, youth peer support. It's beautiful to see how peer support is really growing and expanding. And what we're going to be doing in the future, this was really sort of a community dialogue, if you will, just to get people really thinking and honing in on what the possibilities look like right now during COVID. In future webinars, lunch and learns, we're actually going to be teaching some things and about peer support, how to do it well, skills, different topics. And family to family and youth to youth peer support is going to be an ongoing topic, as well as system of care and family driven and youth driven voice. So I'm glad that you opened that up, Brian. If you all have other examples of emotional support, things that you are doing as a peer support specialist, please put them in the chat. If you have questions about emotional peer support, anything that we talked about, put them in the chat. Because it's being recorded, the chats are also recorded, and we can go back and look at them and make sure that your questions are answered. So if you have other examples, please put them in the chat and we will make sure those get shared. So the second category of support that we identified is informational, and this is really connection to good, solid information, which becomes really critical right now, as well as access to things that support our health and our healing and our wellness. And some examples that we have compiled for this one, this comes from Ariel. Ariel, can you just give us a sentence on what this is?
Yeah, so this was kind of inspired by our town hall that we decided to start up again. And usually in town hall, we would share updates, kind of short blurbs about things that are going on in Purin or resources. And I was really thinking about the folks that we serve who don't have access to internet or Facebook or Zoom, and just thinking about them and how they're staying connected. And so this was just an idea of a newsletter to get them some information, some resources, but also, some fun and inspiring things which I think everyone can use right now.
Yeah, so it's a combination of resource, it's a combination of inspiration, it's a combination of pictures, so they know who's facilitating these classes and to remain connected to the team through Promise Resource Network. And it's a low-tech option to make sure that people that don't have access to technology, if they have a place to send it, we can send it to them. And I know some other organizations are doing something really similar. So that's another example of how we're providing informational support. This is another one that comes from Fonda, who is in Charlotte. Fonda Bryant is a peer support specialist. She doesn't work for a particular agency. She's an independent peer support specialist that started putting suicide QPR classes online. She is getting people from all over the country participating in QPR. It is free and is all about how to open the dialogue around suicide, how to ask the questions and be curious. And there is an actual curricula called QPR that she is going through and making it available to anybody. It's another example of informational peer support. A third example are just examples that are coming from different sites, from Promise Resource Network and Sunrise and some of the other ones. This is about domestic violence. Some of these are specific to our community in Mecklenburg. Some of them are statewide and others are national. We are putting these types of information out every single day on our Facebook site, on our website, and in email, any way that we can get information into people's hands. It is our responsibility to stay up to date as peer support specialists on the best information available. We have a couple of peer support specialists right now who their job is to know the resources in each of the 8 dimensions of wellness, access them, gather them, and put them out so that people have access. So this is one example around domestic violence. This is an example from Legal Aid providing free legal support around tenancy rights, around simple divorce. We know the divorce rate is actually soaring right now during COVID. navigating Social Security, expungement and certificate of relief. They're doing them free. They're virtual legal clinics. We want to know that information. We want to put that out there. This is one for students. If you don't have access to the internet, who can you call to get free internet from Spectrum? And so you'll see when you go to, for example, PRN's Facebook site, you're going to see every single day there's at least probably 5 different resources going out that encompass all different dimensions of wellness. That is another way for peer support specialists to remain connected to informational. Here are the Facebook pages. So when you get the slides, you have the Sunrise Facebook page, you have the Promise Resource Network Facebook page, Pure Voice North Carolina Facebook page, and you have NC Canzo. Combined, those 4 sites have all of the classes that are being offered between the organization, as well as the resources and virtual support. You can just keep checking into those sites as 4 examples. Obviously, it's not exhaustive, it's not inclusive of everything, but there is a lot of information on those 4 sites alone.
And there were some questions about where we were going to post things from this. It will be on that Peer Voice North Carolina Facebook page that we will post that stuff.
Yes. Yes, right now, if you go to PRN, we are posting things every day, but moving forward, we want to make sure that PVNC community has access to this type of information, the link to this, the recorded version of this, they will all be on PVNC.
Do we know if anyone has actually tried to utilize the Spectrum for students? Do you know of anyone, Shireen?
I do not.
Okay, if anyone does know, can they let Darcy know how it's gone and how what you had to do? Thank you. Just
absolutely
relaying the chat. It's great.
Again, informational, access to free medications or how to get prescriptions filled right now, access to delivery for food. Those are all informational types of support that we want to make sure we know. The third one is instrumental support, and that is sort of the connection or the relationship with very concrete things. Housing, food, and employment. Those 3 are coming up constantly. So here's some examples of instrumental support. This is Healthy Meals for Kids during COVID in North Carolina. It's information that's going out there that is very practical. It's about food delivery. It's about different locations to access free food in North Carolina. That is an example of instrumental peer support. Free Wi-Fi for free and low-cost Wi-Fi so that you can access digital. So this one is not just about students. This is free Wi-Fi for anybody. Again, it's just, we're just giving examples. We don't have time to go through all the resources that we have access to, but just wanted to give you a few of those examples.
And part of it is what we wanted to say is that that's really part of our job as peer workers is to be looking at your own community and what is available. And that should just be part of your job description, we hope, and that you have the time fit in to find these resources because they're critical to being able to support the people in our own communities.
Completely. This is an example of employment. This one is specific to Mecklenburg County. I'm sure every community has some variation of who is hiring right now in your community. If people are interested in working, which organizations or businesses are hiring. This was just another example of a resource that we put out and we send to people around the employment instrumental version of support. Then we do a WorkWorks class with Ariel and Zach and Darcy. That's around employment, how to seek employment, how to secure employment, how to apply right now during COVID. And that's an ongoing course that they are teaching. And then we wanted to end with this, that really think about it in terms of the community of people that you are supporting as a peer support specialist. What are their needs? What particular vulnerabilities are they experiencing right now? And what tips and information might be helpful when you ask them? And so the first one is an example we came across because we work with a lot of people experiencing homelessness at PRN. And that is, if you're getting a housing voucher and you apply for unemployment, your unemployment counts as income. That will affect your voucher. that is a tip that people who get vouchers and utilize vouchers for housing, if you don't know that and you see all of these things out there about applying for unemployment, you may not realize or be able to make a decision based on that if you don't have this information. Getting the stimulus check when experiencing homelessness, there are ways to get the stimulus check. We are supporting people on how to do it, giving them the information and helping them access it. Personal loans for people that are furloughed is another example. There are groups going on in jails. I know we have coordinated and Sunrise has coordinated to do virtual support groups in jails. Our wellness and recovery courts are doing their groups as well. Another one is that Lynn and I have been asked to write a guide for the National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors, specifically around peer-to-peer support of and by people that are in state hospitals, institutions, jails, and prisons. So how can we tap into the peer-to-peer relationships and supports while people are in institutional settings? The whole point of this is be curious, offer things that are relevant to people. And right now we have to be, like we do always, but particularly right now, we have to be flexible, we have to be open, we have to be creative, and we have to be responsive. Now more than ever. And so these are just a list of examples of things that we have done, Sunrise has done, Green Tree has done, other peer support specialists in North Carolina have done to respond right now. Okay, questions, other examples that you all have for this? Faith, do you want to hop in and share some of the examples you were going to talk about right now?
Well, oh yeah, I didn't realize I was unmuted. Good thing I was just kind of being here and listening and being quiet. I could have been saying goodbye to somebody or saying hello, but family walking around the house. So, you know, we just launched a project that we actually had funded back in the late fall, and this is an outreach project. Sunrise is the regional recovery community organization, which means that we're not just, you know, serving Asheville. We also are, you know, kind of moving into serving the entire Western region as a support and a provider of technical assistance. And this project is a small pilot where we provide some living wage paid internships to people in counties that are under-resourced. Asheville and Buncombe County, at least in the central part of the county, is very resource rich. You go about 5 or 6 miles out of town, it's an entirely different story. And even here in the central part of Asheville, there are communities that don't have the access to resources that other communities may have. So really wanted to create a project that gave us opportunities to learn what under-resourced communities, whether those are under-resourced rural communities or under-resourced communities right here in the city of Asheville, to learn what recovery needs are and how people are already supporting each other. Because we know that it's not like, you know, people are, you know, just kind of going without and going without. People are incredibly resourceful. And so we want to learn about, you know, what's happening in some of these communities that we might look at and be like, wow, there's no resources there. You know, what are people doing? And then also to support communities in creating some resources.
That's right.
Using, you know, what's called participatory organizing, where you work with community members to learn about, you know, what their needs and assets and resources are, and then to really kind of lift their capacity to create resources that are meaningful and sustainable, that matter to them. So we're rolling that little project out, hoping to get funding to, you know, to expand it into other counties here in the Western region, and really kind of mirror that work of learning about how can we support, you know, more peer support, you know, community education about what peer support is and ways that it can be utilized as, you know, really flexible and responsive and community integrated resource. And then, you know, helping people to put together, you know, community support networks and, build those relationships, really. I mean, all of this really is an excuse for, us to learn about and to make connections with, what's happening outside of, our immediate community that we're in proximity with. Because, really kind of thinking about the recovery community as, not having, there are no county lines. So,
That's right.
really, this is just an opportunity for us to reach out and say, hey, we've got some funding and we want to, help you all to support, to make some resources and learn about what's happening and, hi, how are you doing? So that's something that we recently rolled out that I'm really, really excited about. And I'd love to learn more about the, building mutual aid projects in institutional settings. For years I had and I'm still periodically in touch with a gentleman who's on death row over at North Carolina Central Prison. His case is, perpetually in review under the Racial Justice Act. And, really wrongfully incarcerated in many ways. But, recall years ago, I was doing mutual aid organizing here in Asheville and reached out to him and said, how do people support each other? They're on death row because I know it's got to happen. And, so that's just something that I'm absolutely, passionate about, learning more about. And so it's really exciting to hear about some of the work being done in those areas.
Well, I think, Lynn, we need to fold faith into that conversation then, because that really is a way that around the state, different states are, they're not allowing people to come in. They don't have the tech access that they have historically had. And they're not doing much of programming right now because of COVID. Everybody's isolated. And so the idea of how to adapt peer support, which is funny to me about adapting peer support, because to us, it's really going back to the core of peer support, which is all about relationships.
Right.
But how do we do that in environments when you have somebody who is in prison supporting somebody else who's in prison, or somebody who's in a forensic unit at a psychiatric hospital supporting somebody in the same forensic unit? That is what we are seeing as a trend of what's going to be happening in peer support. And we are very fortunate to be at the front lines of making that happen and putting it in the hands of the institutions.
And the beautiful thing about the project itself, the beautiful thing about the project that Faith is talking about to me is that even though there's funding for us to start the project, we don't have to worry about the sustainability of the project because it's built by the community itself. So we can go in there, build up the leaders of the community, and then step back and it runs itself in a healthier way. And those are the kind of programs we want to continue.
And that's it. And that's where peer support came from. And when the more structures we have around us, the further away we get from peer support. And this virus has provided us the opportunity to do peer support the way it was envisioned and really demonstrate how powerful it is. It's the peer workers around the state who are out there kicking butt because we know how to do it. We know how to just sit, be, connect, and say not alone. And
that's exactly right.
It's all about.
And so that's really getting into the last section, which is affiliational support. Peer support is all about connection. Yeah. And then we'll open the dialogue. Peer support is all about connection. It's like 115 right now, 120 right now.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
all about relationship and it's all about connection. And, there is a lot happening, as you can hear, just so far of what's happening around affiliational support. Justin talked about their no hand shared meal. It's so good to hear that you're doing that now weekly. It started on Good Friday. But if you're interested in learning more, that's the one on the right. That was on Good Friday, was their no hands meal. Their listening sessions, which he already talked about. The example is on the left of how they're doing their listening sessions. For PRN, it's town hall, but this gives you a couple of visuals when we're talking about affiliational support. Green Tree, who wasn't able to make it today, but they shared with me this information. They're doing daily peer relationships via phone, so they're doing telephonic peer support. They're doing Wednesday weeklies, which is a newsletter for information to support self-care and resilience. They're doing their mutual support groups 3 times a week. They're doing their phone contacts and outreach weekly. And then they're doing individual peer support as well, which would be tele-peer support. So that's in Winston-Salem. I heard Mental Health Association of Greensboro. I would love to have you guys on this list to be able to share with people peer-run examples that are happening all over in North Carolina. This is a fun one. I don't think Cedric's on, and because of time, I want to make sure that we're doing this fairly quickly. But Cedric Hoyt is a peer support specialist who is also a singer, and he's connected to musicians all over the country, and many musicians that we work with at PRN. And he's doing a virtual jam session with musicians through Zoom. And so he's going to be doing that. He's looking at live stream and Be Live and Stream Live as examples of apps and platforms that he's going to be using as a peer support specialist to connect people
Cedric
that
is
are.
here.
Oh, Cedric, you are here. Cedric, can you?
Cedric,
Cedric, one sentence or two, Cedric, please.
Okay, let's see if I
Or
can
you
see
can
everybody.
just sing a verse if you want.
Uh,
Do you want to sing a verse and just give us an example of your beauty?
okay, can y'all hear me, see me? I'm not sure. I can't.
You can do both.
you're on,
Okay.
Cedric. We got you.
Great. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. That goes for everybody that's out here now. And we're all together as a family, but we are beautiful people. We are light. And I just really like the idea of how music captivates the mind, the body, the soul, everybody. I feel like everybody could benefit from a good song. I had an example where I got a call one time from our warm line, and I used my connection because I knew this individual as she called, when she gave her name. And the ending of our conversation was just a simple song. And she said, you know what, that I really needed that. So I thought about this idea of music, just trying to capture everybody during this time and how it just helps soothe the soul. And that was my purpose. That's what I want to do. So I hope you
Love
guys
it.
just enjoyed that little snippet.
I know I'll speak for myself. I love it. And I love the fact that our peer team members throughout the state are tapping into what you're passionate about, your talents, your interests, and you're creating opportunities for other people with similar interests that we've never met before. Our one-on-one peer support relationships at PRN right now, we just did a tally. We've had 501 over the last 2.5 weeks. 501 people that we are connecting with virtually through
Right.
peer support. And when you add music and writing and all of these beautiful things to it, it just joins communities in ways that we haven't had access to before. Amazing, Ced. Thank you so much. So if anybody's musically inclined or you just want to be a voyeur like me and listen, I'm sure Cedric will put out when his virtual jam sessions are.
I will.
Yeah. And then there are examples like art classes, there are dance lessons going on online. We have a lot of meditation, and there's chair yoga going on. I know PRN has meditation, chair yoga, different activities to support your nervous system right now. Those are things that are happening on a daily basis through Facebook Live. So check those things out too. It's for your own skills and your own support, as well as how we can be in support of other people, or we can do these things with people as peer-to-peer relationships. We also have other examples, which is what Faith was talking about, which is really stepping into social justice or to change. There's an open call for young people through the Youth Collegiate Coalition to come together. It's a youth-led coalition to identify the things that are important to young people in recovery from mental health and substance use issues. It's being led by the Emerald School of Excellence, which is the first recovery high school with Peer Voice North Carolina. And it's another example of how peers are leading social change, but other people can be a part of it or do something similar within their community. And then
Anna
the
just
support group.
Oh.
Yeah, good.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was going to say, Anna also just mentioned one that is just being put together is a support group for single parents at home trying to, deal with their kids and schooling and parenting and work during the time of COVID. Another right on target kind of class or support group. There's so many out there.
So many.
Yep.
Yeah, this is from People USA groups. And just this one sheet alone could keep you in connection every day, right? And there is something on here for everybody. If you start looking online, you are going to see so many examples of cool groups that are happening right now that you can tap into. You can tap into people or share with them. And then this is another example. This is a Writers Guild from Mandy and Zach. Mandy, are you on? Can you share like one sentence or two about this and the virtual open mic?
Sure, I'll go, I can try to go super fast. So our idea was that we needed some connection in the evening. So Zach and I have put together a Writing for Wellness class, and it's gonna be work of art and movement. So it's gonna have a prompt on the flyer every week, and then there's gonna be a special guest every week that can discuss the participants' writing, and then bring their own stuff to the table. So right now we have a veteran that writes for wellness for around PTSD. We have a creative writing teacher. We brought in guerrilla poets. And we're also going to have a thing called, I'm sorry, it's an exquisite corpse, but it's basically an ongoing poem. So where everybody has a different line that they present in it. And with that, we're going to have an electronic, publication, probably seasonally, with all the different work. And that's going to be with writing and illustrated work together. But it's going to be in the evening, so everybody can participate.
Yeah, and then you're providing the virtual open mic resources for musicians and poets and artists and
Right.
people that really want to be connected to their virtual, you know, their open mics and their cafes that they can't necessarily go to in person right now. But there are a lot of virtual open mics happening around the country right now. So you're going to make sure they have access to where those are located as well.
Yeah, at the end of it, yeah. And this was a corpse is going to be a rolling ramble. We're super excited about that can just be an ongoing collaborative poem for all the different participants. It's going to be on Thursdays at 7 p.m.
Beautiful. So those
I
are
love
just
that title, A Rolling Ramble.
isn't it great?
Yeah.
Great.
If you're looking for any of these classes, you can go to our website, our calendar at PRN. You can go to Sunrise. You can go to Mental Health Association of Greensboro. You can look these things up. I know we have a calendar that you can look at visually that have the classes that we have going on every week, along with the links that are live so that you know what's going on ahead of time. These are some visuals. So we do a Facebook Live. This is a Body, Mind, and Spirit class. Gentle chair yoga. Casey does that with us every week. Seeking Safety, which is a trauma-based class with Sharon Galuski. This is Jane doing an activity, and she does a lot of things around the nervous system. This is Amanda and Sharon doing a class called Keep Your Power. And this is Jane doing an activity for the nervous system. So those are the classes, examples of classes on Facebook Live that anybody can join right now if you go to the Promise Resource Network site, excuse me. And then just a couple of more, and then I'm going to open it up. Here's some mindfulness circles going on by peer support specialists around the country for meditation and mindfulness. This is for LGBTQIA friends. So these are only a couple of them. If you go to our site, you'll see every day of the week, there's another type of support group for people that identify along the gender identity spectrum, as well as the sexual orientation spectrum. And then this is one specifically for our transgender community. So this is the peer support hotline for that. Again, depending on the needs of the people that you're supporting, depending on your needs, there is something out there in the peer support stratosphere for everyone. And our question to you really becomes, as a peer support specialist, is there at least one thing that's we presented today that you're really interested in, that you want to try out? You're welcome to unmute yourselves at this point, that you want to just try out and see, how does that look? How can I?
I'd like for you to go back to that slide on the mindfulness.
Sure. Okay, let me pull that up. Okay, is it going back for you? Can you see it?
Yep, right there.
There you go. And that's just Monday through Wednesday. There are others that are Thursday through Sunday as well, but I could only fit 3 days on there.
I'm not sure, baby.
I know Shireen unmuted everybody. Maybe if you could mute until you want to talk, because we are getting a lot of background noise.
Okay.
One thing that I've liked from this is that in my community, in my county, we do not have anything for peer support, and that's something that I've been trying to figure out how to do. But the information about the lady who started it as, you know, as a I don't want to say a hobby, but as like something for her community for free, that gave me an excellent idea of how I can start it for people in this area.
Beautiful. Are you talking about the one that did the QPR, the suicide recognition and prevention? Fonda
Yes.
Bryant? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, she's not working for an agency. She is a peer support specialist that is looking to do good. In her lived experience as a suicide attempt survivor, and she wanted to make sure that she has that information in the hands of other people so that we could potentially prevent more suicides. Beautiful. Other examples, questions, comments, things that you're willing or want to try, cool things that you learned today that you're like, yeah, amazing. I'm going to try that out.
So this is Amanda Martin. I was just really for my own personal wellness, because it's hard to find things like eating disorder support groups that aren't Overeaters Anonymous or 12-step related stuff, which is fantastic. It's just not my preferred method of recovery. So that was really interesting to hear about, and I look forward to attending those and maybe at some point in time bringing that into the community here in Charlotte.
Yeah, love it. We actually have a significant lack of support groups for people with eating disorders around North Carolina. So to add something like that in the community would be amazing, Amanda.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Indu Joshi, and I wanted to ask, do you have any RAP plan to deal with the COVID-19?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, do you have some RAP plan which is made to deal with the COVID-19, which we can provide to the clients? And
like fact sheets?
Yeah.
No, RAP. RAP is Wellness Recovery Action Plan for the Mental Health.
Yes.
I used to teach that class through SNH. So I was just wondering if you want, I can help in making a RAP plan and teach that class.
Nice. Yeah, COVID RAP. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So one of the classes, I can't get to it in my hands right now, but it's a wellness and recovery class, is a modified version of RAP that Sharon Galuski is doing online. And I know there are a couple of other like RAP, Mary Ellen Copeland and that group has started doing some RAP online as well. But again, there's not enough of it. And, you know, for the need to be able to offer things like that would be incredible for the community. And if you have that skill, you have that knowledge, being able to do RAP during COVID could be incredibly beneficial to people.
Yeah, so, but I don't know how to like connect with the whole group and be offering to the people like I used to do through my agency. Right now we are furloughed because of the COVID-19 from our organization.
If you put your email in the chat, we
Okay.
could reach out and talk to you about how to do that.
Okay.
That'd be
Okay,
great. Thanks.
Yeah, and I will try to collect the information. Since I have the medical background and, you know, I can put some alternate ways to deal with the COVID-19, like, you know, drinking hot water, hot saline goggles, you know, deep breathing, and, you know, different alternate ways which can help to people to improve their immunity so that even if they are exposed, they are likely to get infected, but in a lesser severe way. So, you know,
Excellent.
I can collect all that information and I will put my email into that.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice attending the webinar.
Great.
thank
I'm glad
you.
you were here.
And I saw that Sunrise is also doing some rep skills online. So that might be another organization that you want to connect with.
Oh,
Other
okay.
examples from people on the line, things that you're doing or something you want to try as a result of this?
This coming from the West Coast and having been homeless for 15 years, raising my son on the streets, my heart is breaking for the homeless population where I live.
Yep.
So I actually have a meeting with the mayor and Andrews, who started the peer support to the homeless population here. And my plan is to, you know, so recovery to me using harm reduction is subjective. I learned a long time ago that because somebody's not in a house doesn't mean that they're not in recovery in a subjective manner and are not able to help others. That is how I got clean and sober. That is what saved me. It was not the churches and all the organizations in town. It was the other people in the homeless population. So I have a meeting coming up with the mayor and Andrews to start something for peer support around the homeless population, whether we cannot access free meals right now. We can't access free clothing. We can't access anything. And I know we had a bad storm over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed to go to any shelters. So I'm collecting donations and stuff to set up for the homeless population around here. I mean, that's outside of my work, but that is my heart.
Love it.
The homeless population.
Love it.
If anybody wants to get involved, I'm here.
It's great.
Thank you so much, Vi, for sharing that. We have several people on the line that have also experienced homelessness and are doing amazing things to just offer support and resources and connection to people without homes right now.
Right.
So to know that you're doing that in your community, beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Lynn.
Somebody asked in the chat about, you know, outreach and connection with folks that don't have technology. And I think we're going to try to really tap into what people are doing and try to present on that, because those are the folks who are truly the most isolated right now because they don't have their normal brick and mortar resources and they're not on technology where everything is gone. So I think we'll just plan on having that be a topic for one of our weeks. So that you guys can share with each other what you're doing, like Mandy's cards. You know, that's a way to connect with somebody in a non-electronic way. And I think it's really important for us to think about those folks too, because they're the most isolated and probably don't have the right information even of what's going on. So I think we'll address that in another call because it's so important.
Yeah. So from this point forward, this is what we can expect. Every Friday, we're going to do a lunch and learn. More often than not, it's going to be educational, more training. This was much more around sharing with each other what's happening right now, all trying to adjust during COVID and coming up with some really interesting, creative ways to make sure that we are connected, that our families are connected, that people that we know that we are providing peer support with have access to information and resources and remain connected. And we wanted to take some time to celebrate that and to really inspire the peer support specialists that have either been furloughed or you're just kind of sitting there go, I don't know what to do right now because I can't make a referral to this, or you know, I don't have tasks to do. One of the disadvantages that has happened within the peer community when it became part of a system is it really has been translated through the lens of case management. And so we think tasks are peer support. And now that we don't have tasks to do, a lot of peer support specialists are sitting here going, we don't know what our role is right now because we can't take somebody's BMI and we can't go to this appointment and we can't make this referral right now. So peer support specialists are becoming offline. What we are hoping is that you will see that your role now more than ever is absolutely critical. And this is allowing us to go back to the core, go back to where peer support originated, to provide the relationships, the emotional support, the connection to people with resources, and to really show up and shine in our peer relationships. And so we hope this was helpful. Join us again next week. I think we're going to talk next week about the history of the movement and the emergence of peer support. And then we're going to dive into it every week from there. If you want us to connect with you, put your email in the chat. You know how to get a hold of many of us. Reach out to us, and we will see you.
That's how you got to support.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Shireen.
Bye, Shireen.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Lynn.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good.
Hang in there and stay connected.
Yeah.
Thanks,
You guys
Lynn.
did great.
Say,
It's a
It's
beautiful
good to
day.
see everybody.
Thank
It really is.
everybody.
Stay well. Stay well. Oh my God, an echo.
take care.
Love you guys. Bye.
Thank
you all. Thank you all very much.
Love you guys. Bye.
Wonderful meeting. Wow, a lot of good information. Thank
Oh,
you.
Thank
great.
you, Lisa.
That's what we were hoping for.
It's inspiring, huh, Lisa? It's so inspiring.
It was.
great.
It was. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I mean, I've had the pleasure to listen. This is, I think, the second or the third time, and I've gotten quite a notepad based on a lot of the resources provided, and just it's very, very informative as a peer support specialist. This is information you need to help another person. Sometimes you just don't. And this is a great place to get a jump start on getting that, getting pointed in the direction to get the right information.
That's great.
Thank you.
Oh, that makes it worth it. Thank you so
For
much for
years
that.
we wanted this, and now finally we had the opportunity to do it. Connect with each other.
Well, I'm so grateful for your dedication and your commitment. Really, I do. Thank you so much,
Thank
ladies.
you.
And the young man sounded very awesome. I think I'll.
Cedric. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does somebody have a question?
Will I be able to use the same link to get on here next week?
No, we will let everybody know we're going to another Zoom platform that allows more people. So be sure to look for the invite for next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
All right, guys, you be
Be
well.
safe, everyone.
Y'all be safe. Bye.
I know you know the word goodbye, but I'm not done yet. That's Izzy. He thinks I'm done.